good, everybody out there? Everybody interested in hip-hop, production, audio production, Pro Tools, anything like that. My name's IL Lusciato. That's my alias that I go by in the hip-hop world, in the music world. For those who don't know, I have several thousand in sales worldwide as far as singles, albums, involved in several audio production projects, including radio and whatnot. Today we're going to get going. We're going to do a little simple sampling, which is I'll take a very basic sample and we're going to flip it very basically using Pro Tools. I like to make the beats in there and then record the vocals over that because I think it allows me much better flexibility as far as the overall mix. So we're going to take a very simple sample and we're going to show you how to flip that into a hip-hop beat with drums, bass, and a separate verse and a chorus, etc. And we're going to sit down and get up on that. So pay attention closely and hopefully you learn something interesting. Okay, so here's my Pro Tools setup. Basically, I've already imported 2 tracks here that are possible candidates to be sampled by us today. I'm not going to show you how to import audio because that's what the instruction manuals are for. But we'll go through the samples real quick and just check out if there's anything we want to sample here. What we're going to do is sample a straight up loop, maybe alter the time a little bit, but just a song that already has a loop. It's the most basic form of sampling, is just looping a pre-existing part of a song in order to make the beat. So we'll start there today, and we'll have in the future lessons, we'll have some more advanced sampling techniques. Let's just go through the songs real quick and make the decision. This is one of them. It's a real simple, straightforward loop that we could use. And then here's another one. See what this one is. I think we're going to go with the second one because although the first one has a real smooth vibe and whatnot, there's not as much differential between the verse part and the chorus. So I want to show you guys how to do a verse sample and then go right into a chorus. So for that reason, I want to use the second sample. So let's get the first one out of there. Let's delete that track altogether. Now, the first thing to do when you're sampling is you want to find and isolate the loop that you're going to use. So we're going to use this selection tool here. It looks like any cursor that you would see on a word processing program or whatever. We're going to highlight the anticipated area of the sample. We're going to play it. We want to find the exact optimal place to put the loop so that it goes into itself over and over again, sounding very fluid and very cohesive. You don't want to have any pops or anything like that. So let's try to find the most optimal place to isolate this loop. See right there that it looks like you can use the magnifying glass to zoom in. These are the actual wave images, and you can get right up in front of that, and then that should correspond with the beginning of the loop so that it should go fluently into each other. Let's check. now you can hear we have the loop. It sounds a little choppy at one point, but once we get our own percussion and drums in there, it'll pretty much be inaudible at that point. Now the second thing you want to do, which I love Pro Tools for allowing me to be able to do this, is you're going to separate the selection. You're going to go to separate region, at selection, and now you have isolated the loop, just the loop that you want. You can go ahead and delete whatever's in the beginning. And I'm going to take the rest of the sample for right now and just move it out of the way. Because we are going to need it later, but for now we don't need it, so I'm just going to move it out of the way. And I'm going to switch to grid mode and put this exactly so that it starts precisely on the first bar, the first beat. So that we have it lined up perfectly. Now the next thing, and this is very, very important, especially when you're going to have a loop that's going to go into a chorus and you're going to record vocals over it. One of the best advantages to Pro Tools is that when you go into Pro Tools to record the vocals, you have the entire beat and the entire music section already broken down into mathematical bars. So you're going to have 16 for the verse or whatever it may be, 24, then 8 for the chorus or whatever that may be. And when somebody does the vocals, you can loop it and you can copy and paste the choruses, for instance, mathematically directly on point so that you'll never be off even by a millisecond. You have to find out how many bars are in your loop, so let's count. There are 4 bars in our loop, which means we want to go 4 bars on here. What you want to do next is you want to identify the BPM of the sample to see if you want to change the speed at all internally. And the way to do that is you want to get it so that 4 bars, which is from the 1 to the 5, encompassing 4 bars, is the length of the sample. So right now you can see the sample is much longer than that because we are at 120 beats per minute. So the sample is slower than that. So in order to get a little trial and error and see how fast the sample is, we want to adjust the beats per minute. And it's really just trial and error. We'll start with 80, which is pretty slow, and we'll see what that does. And we are just about there. If it's a little bit too long or short, we can adjust later. So don't worry too much if it's a little bit off. Just get the basic loop there and then play it to make sure. That's a solid loop. But the problem is the tempo on this is now 82.8, which is pretty slow. If we were to put our own drums in there and then try to rap to it, it would generally be a very slow rap song, or would have to be double time, which would make it extremely fast, the lyrics. So we want to speed it up a little bit because 82 is a little slow. Generally you want to be somewhere in between, I'd say 92 and 103. But that's just a guideline. Really, you can be creative and do whatever you'd like. But I do want to speed this sample up a bit. So what I'm going to do is highlight the whole thing. You're going to go to Audio Suite, and then you're going to go to Pitch Shift. Do not use the time correction function because it's going to distort the audio. You're going to go to Pitch Shift, click here, and then you're going to time correction. You're going to get off. You don't want time correction because time correction will allow the sample to have the same duration of time, but either lower or higher the pitch, which will distort the sample, especially the bass and whatnot. So you're going to get rid of time correction. We want it to speed up. And we're going to adjust the course. If you want to slow something down, you're going to go minus. And if you're going to speed something up, you're going to go plus. So we're going to try +2 here and see what we wind up with. Process. Then we're going to listen to it, make sure it sounds all right, first of all. Sounds good. So let's see what the tempo is now. Let's trial and error again, see what we're at here. So the sample sounds good. Let's see what we are at now again. Let's try 93 here. And we are just about on point at 93, which is the optimal speed. It's a little bit fast, so we're going to go a little bit slower and see if we can get something out of it. Again, it's hard to get these specific all the time, but don't sweat it. Just get it as close as you possibly can. Listen to the loop. Make sure it's still fluid. Sounds great. So that's where we are now. Now what we're going to do is, the sample is now formatted mathematically, so it is exactly at 92.9 beats per minute, which is pretty optimal. It's a little slower than some songs, but it's good enough. And then what we're gonna do is, because we're gonna use parts of the other sample for the chorus and whatnot, we're gonna make sure that we speed the rest of the sample up to the same speed as our loop is, just in case we need any other portions, additional portions of the sample to use in our song. So we're going to go highlight the entire sample that we moved aside earlier, go to Audio Suite, go to Pitch Shift again, get rid of time correction, and we did up 2 semitones, so we're going to go plus 2 semitones on the whole thing, process, and then we're going to keep it out of the way for now, concentrate back on our loop. And we're going to import some drum sounds now to match up and to throw some kick into our beat. Import all of those. Now you see it populates on my mix window as well as my edit window. And we're going to zoom in. And now everything, the beauty of finding your BPM and using Pro Tools is that the grid is visible to you. So everything that you do, you're going to hear it in your head first, of course, but now you have the grid to rely on so that your drum sounds are always perfectly placed. And you'll hear it in your head, and you have to, a little trial and error, but you'll get the drums in the right place, and it's always going to sound crisp and clean. So we'll start with I'll bring the kick up closer to the sample. I can expand my edit window to give me some more visual room. I can always switch back to my mix window if I'd like. Mute these out for now. We'll actually put the snare on the first level there, and we'll see how this first little part sounds. Throw the drums in wherever you think they're going to sound good. Make sure you hear it in your head first and then go for it. So I'll try what I'm hearing and see how it sounds. That's the first little part. We'll expand to the second now and see how it goes into each other. See what we're going to do for the second part of this loop here. As you can see, the drums are in there now. I visioned them. I just kind of threw them in there. I heard it in my head, then put it out, and that's where you come in as a producer, as an artist. You're going to have your own perception and take on the music, so hear the drums in your head and then pace them accordingly. Play around with them a little bit so that the sound gets where you want it. It's all mathematically set up for you, so you'll never be off beat. Now, what you'll see sometimes that happens with a loop is if it already has drums in it, there can be times where the drums aren't lining up rhythmically with your drums, so you're going to have to adjust that. So if you can actually visually see the drum here, and you can see my drum and its drum are not lined up. They're a little off. So you're going to go into the slip mode. You're going to take the cursor again and just put it right before the sound. Go to edit, go to separate region at selection, and leave it in slip mode so you can kind of keep it there. And you're going to slide it over so that the drum is now lined up, and then you have to make sure now, because the sample is a little altered, that the sample still sounds good, because sometimes when you do that you distort the sample, so you have to play with it a little bit. So let's zoom back out, zoom back in here, and let's see if the sample still sounds alright. And it sounds perfect, so we know that it's doing well. Highlight all the drums, but do not highlight the sample, just the drums. And then you're going to go to edit, repeat 1, and now they should be the same drums. Sometimes it works with the other part of the sample, and sometimes you're going to have to adjust them a little bit. Let's see how it works here. Now what you want to do is you want your drums to be dominant. So we're going to take down the volume of the sample a bit. We're going to up our own drum level, because you don't want the sample drums to interfere with your drums. Your drums are the predominant driver of your new song. What I like to do now is layer the drums. So you're going to import again. You're going to import some more drums. Usually I like to get another hat, a less dominant hat, because your main hat is the one that's already in there. So you want a very thin hat. A lot of times where I'll find that hat is here. When you go to the 808 kit, the 808 hat is usually generally thin. You can use that. And then I'm going to get my 808 kick in here. I always use 808s on almost every beat. On almost every beat I use an 808, because it'll bring that beat alive. It'll make the bass rock and all the large speakers in people's cars and the club and whatnot. So I always like to layer with an 808 and an extra hi-hat if necessary. On this one I'm going to put the hi-hat double time compared to the other hi-hat. So as of now, our hi-hats sound, if you can hear them, and now we're going to add some double time to that to see if we can help increase, make the beat come to life a little more. So in order to do that, we go double. And you're just going to put it twice as many times as the initial hat. And you can visually see how that's done. And if you do it correctly, then these hats should all line up with the other hats and then have one extra in addition to it. So I did one bar's worth, and then I'll repeat, and I'll repeat it 3 times, because that'll make 4 bars altogether. So that'll be the duration of our loop. And you can see it all lines up. Again, the math is the most important thing with hip-hop, techno, trance, house, any of that stuff, because that kind of music is rhythmic and mathematical, and that's why Pro Tools is so handy when you're doing these kind of things. So now, if you listen to our hi-hats, they sound like this. And it adds you can hear, it adds a lot to it. The beat in general just sounds a little more lively now, and it's your drum pattern is becoming predominant over the sample. The sample is now an afterthought to your beat. The drums and the hats, that's your creation, and the beat is serving that end. What I did here is that the new hi-hats are a little electronic sounding and they're a little too loud, so I can just come into my mix window and lower the hi-hat that was a little bit electronic-y. Leave the predominant original hi-hat loud, lower the new one, and I want to pan them off a little bit to the left and right just to separate them. And it sounds real cool when you're listening in the car or in headphones because they're a little bit separated, and it's just it increases the pull of the audio. It makes it more intriguing to the human ear. Now we have the 808 kick, and the 808 kick adds some oomph. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it over the video, but you definitely are going to hear it in the car and whatnot. So we are going to place it, I always place it at the beginnings of each bar, because generally that boom in the beginning of the bar is always something you want. It varies by beat, but generally that always works. Now we have our 808s in there, and it adds a lot more of a thump. We have our hats in there, and let's see how it sounds overall here. Now you hear it's bouncing, it's there. There's the verse loop. What people are going to be rapping over is this right here. What we're going to do next is we're going to add the chorus part. Not every time you sample a straight loop you'll have another part available for the chorus, but you know, this isn't the 70s or 80s anymore. We're going to have to vary it up a little bit. Even when we're sampling so basic like this with just one consistent loop, it's still important to have some variation. So what we're going to do is we're going to find another part of the song that can serve as our chorus. So that part that we got rid of a long time ago, and by the way, I always save often because Pro Tools is a fickle program. It's very, it eats up a lot of computer memory. So if you don't save often, you could lose the entire thing that you've been working on if it unexpectedly shuts down. So I do save. But now let's go back to that part that we got rid of a while ago, and let's see if we can find a portion of it that can be used for the chorus. I think that whole part there. You can use voices too all the time. People like to use voices in the chorus. For this one I'm going to stick to just the trumpets. I think they add something for the chorus, so you're going to pull that back, and you should be able to line it up with where your verse was. You should be able to line it up with the verse part so that it goes in very, very easily and flawlessly. And it does. And the reason is because we made sure that we sped up both the overall sample and our loop to the same rate of BPM so that they should always fit mathematically at all times. So it was easy. Now what we're going to do is paste the drum pattern over the chorus and see if that lines up. Sometimes that does and sometimes that doesn't. We just have to see. Depending upon how the chorus was, and also depending upon the kind of music you're sampling. Because if you're sampling traditional dance music or something, it will usually be uniform, and the chorus will be exactly the same as the verse as far as the drum pattern. But if it's R&B or rock or country or something along those lines, imperfection is the beauty to those kind of artists, and so the drum pattern may speed up, slow down, be inconsistent or whatnot, so you may have to adjust. So let's try our drum pattern currently with the chorus. We're going to repeat once. Generally choruses go for 8 bars, so we're going to start with 4 and see if we can either just loop that once, or we're going to see if we want to actually go a full 8 bars on the sample. So let's see how it sounds. fits perfectly. You got to make sure that the verse goes into the chorus smoothly, and make sure that the chorus goes back into the verse smoothly. So for that, you have one loop of the verse and one loop of the chorus, and you just play it through and see how it sounds in the transition. See, now I did not like the way that the end of this chorus went into the verse. I didn't think that, I thought it built up too much and then came back in flat. And you don't want, as you can see, the bars line up perfectly with the sample. This is 1 bar, this is 2 bars, and this is 3 bars. And they all are pretty much consistent. So I can just take one of these bars here and repeat it once, and now all 4 bars are uniform. So now we have a sample that sounds much more cohesive, as you can hear. Now if you're a smart MC, and that's up to the MC, we can't worry about everything. If you're a good MC, you'll be able to fill in that chorus part and build it up yourself with your chorus, with your hook, with a singer, with whatever you're doing. Now, remember, choruses are generally 8 bars, so it's only 4, so we're going to repeat this once. And now you have an 8-bar chorus. Now what I would like to do generally is build that up. I want to build that up. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take these 808s here and I'm going to stack them. I'm going to put them rapidly so that as it goes back down into the verse, there's some anticipation, there's some build up there. So I'm just going to repeat it every so often, and we're going to see how it sounds. That's too consistent, so I'm going to go, and then I'm going to go double that speed for the second part. So now it's double time and then quadruple time. So well, there was a little bit of a mess up, so let's adjust that quickly. Sometimes you hear it, sometimes you see it. But you always got to fix those. So now it sounds, and now you're going to hear how it sounds. Let's take the verse part, which is here, which is 4 bars. Let's highlight that whole 4 bars there before the chorus. Copy that. I'm just going to use Control-C, which is a keyboard shortcut function. I'm going to go to the end of the chorus here, and I'm going to paste it 3 times, because 4 times 4 is 16, and 4 times 4 being 16 is the general length of hip-hop verses. It's usually 16 bars. You can adjust it if the bars change, 24, whatever, 32, but generally it's 16, so I'm going to repeat it 3 times. That makes 4 total, which makes 16. So now I have my 16-bar verse. I have an 8-bar chorus. Let's try something for the intro now. When you make an intro, it does not necessarily have to be at the beginning of the session. You can put an intro wherever. So since I have the chorus at the end of the verse and I have this verse in place, I'm going to play with my original chorus to try to make an intro out of it. And I just want to maybe attempt to play with that. So maybe try repeating that, see if that sounds good. And I do like that. So that's how my song would basically start. Sounds abrupt, but when you get an MC in there, it actually sounds real good. It's going to sound real nice, and he just comes in like that right off the bat. So there you have a basic beat. What we can do, what I like to do at the end, is just bring in a couple more little things here and there just to liven it up a little bit. Some crashes maybe we can try. Go to cymbals here with a little bit of momentum here. So I'll bring the reverse crash up here where the intro is. right there. So that builds up. And then the low regular crash right when the intro ends. So you got so that brings it in with some zing, and then we come to the chorus. See if we want to throw anything there. No, but I do want to throw the crash back in at the beginning of the verse again. Right there. There we go. So now we have a little bit more to the intro, as you can hear right here. So now you have it. There's your beat. It's very basic sampling, as I said. It's just a simple loop into another loop for the chorus. We didn't chop up the beat. We didn't use any filters. We did not add any bass. I didn't use my keyboard to add any live instruments, any pianos, any strings, any bass of our own. So we didn't do very much, but this is basic sampling. This is a good introduction. It's just when there's already a loop available to you on a sample, you can plug that right in and go from there. And then you're set to go. So I hope you enjoyed the lesson. We started out with something very simple and just a sample. We turned it into an entire beat. And on its own, it sounds like this. And that's how you make a basically smooth, soulful beat with just a simple loop. Using Pro Tools. And as I said, later on the vocalist comes in, everything is mathematically laid out. As you can see, zoom out, everything is mathematically laid out, so everything's easy to work with. And then when you bring the vocalist, when you bring the vocalist in, you can add your reverb and your EQs and your compression and all that. But that's a different lesson for a different day. I hope you enjoyed basic sampling, which was the first video. And we'll be back next time with some more complex sampling. We'll also go over some beats from scratch using just the keyboards. We'll do some vocal recording, and we'll do a lot more. So I hope you'll join me next time, and thanks for joining me today. Hope you enjoyed it.